And oh, thank you for doing the recording. So today I have some slides, but I want to make this more interactive. So we're gonna jump in because you're gonna talk to me. So I start off with a quiz. And in the chat box, I want you to put your answers, and it's an easy quiz, true or false. IPS doesn't work for people with serious mental illness who have a lot of problems, true or false? I see a lot of falses going up. Nobody thinks that's true? I see all falses. All right. So either I have people who have drank the Kool-Aid, or I have people who think that false is the right answer. So yes, false is the correct answer. Good job, everybody. So the next one, true or false, IPS requires that you get someone a job as quickly as possible. True or false? I see false, false. I see a lot of falses. Anybody feel like that's true? Or is everybody sticking with false? I see everybody sticking with false. Darren or Dawn, what do you think? Did you answer?
I didn't. I feel like it's true. Sometimes being an employment specialist and working with job seekers, it would be great if you could do that, but it's definitely not required by IPS.
Thank you. So everybody, you're right again. I just want to make sure that, we're starting off on the same page with each other. One last question, true or false? People with mental illness deserve to live full lives in their communities, including meaningful activity, meaningful relationships, and other aspects of recovery. Oh, I see the truth shall set you free. It's coming across. Everybody's believing this. Perfect. So we are in a good space. You've all made it through my big quiz and you all passed. So that's a good thing. What we're going to talk about today is everybody really, truly ready for work? So I'm going to just start off with a scenario. So that you don't have to hear me talking the entire time. Anybody want to read it for me out loud? You can come off mute and read it for me.
All right.
All right.
I am severely depressed without a permanent residence. I am very quiet except when I'm drinking. When drinking, I am either the life of the party or the beast of the party, but always create a scene that has ended in violence and a couple of times. I am always sorry the next time I see you. I spent 3 years of my 24 years in the system for prostitution, but I did what I had to do to survive. Oh, and by the way, prostitution is the only job that I've ever had, and I am not ready to stop drinking, so don't ask me, but I want a job.
Is this person ready to work?
I have a similar situation. I mean, it's almost like identical. I have a participant that this is the story. This is her story. And it took 6 months of going, because she was still prostituting at the same time working with me. And so I waited around for the change. She called me consistently, or I called her when I haven't heard from her in a week. And for me, I believe that the idea that she even came to me for a job made her a job ready, regardless of the risk, regardless of the situation that she was in. And so I kept on working with her, and I think I want to say in about a year, from conversing and everything. Now she's at the Paul Mitchell Institute she wanted to be a hairdresser, and she has a part-time job in retail, and she stopped prostituting.
Okay. All righty.
Yeah,
So
she got it.
So you think she's ready?
You know what? I always believed that she was ready. It just took my supportive services to be completely engaged with her to keep that idea of being ready.
Okay. I have some people in the chat box saying almost ready or not ready. Anybody who says not ready, tell me why. Come off mute and talk to me. Why is she not ready? It might depend on the work, but it sounds like they might be ready. Somebody talk to me. Why isn't she ready for work?
Hey, Pat, this is Rebecca from Compass in Kelso. So, thinking about that last question, it's hard to say. As an employment specialist, you want to believe that people are ready to work when they come to see you, because that's why they're there, right? So you always want to believe that they are ready to work, and then you get to know them, and what their barriers are, what they're dealing with, what their life is like. And then you realize they're probably not ready. But as Deanna said, after years' time of supporting her client, she was ready. She was ready to take that leap. She was ready to make the changes that she needed to make in order to be successful and get into something that is going to be a success for her. Hairdressing is, a wonderful career. Being in retail, those are all great things. But, going back to that original question, was she ready at the time? No.
And so it sounds like some of you are very clear on when a person is ready to work. Because that's what I'm hearing, right? That people are very clear that she is not ready right now. Anybody else want to come and talk to me and tell me why she's not ready?
Hi.
Hi.
This is Joy Armstrong, and I'm in the North Seattle DDR office. Used to be, when we looked at this kind of a quote unquote profile, we would say this person isn't ready, they need to stop drinking, But, seems like the newfangled idea is that, everybody can work in this situation. I think the support and love that Deanna gave, helped bridge that. So, I can't say she wasn't ready, because she showed up and, she did the calls, she did what she was supposed to do. So, or what we want people to do, show up to meetings, call, keep in touch, that kind of a thing. So I think it's kind of like old thinking and then new thinking, because the old thinking would be like, oh no, we're not touching you. Get sober for 90 days, then you come back.
Okay. All right, so somebody else said she's not ready. So I want to talk to those people.
Hi, this is Kristen. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you, Kristen.
I think the only reason why I said, in my opinion, I think she isn't ready, because I've been that angry drunk person and I knew I wasn't ready. So it might be a biased thing for me. Just because I knew if I was drinking myself into a stupor a lot, I wasn't going to be able to retain a job if I wanted to do. I wanted to work, sure. So she wanted to work, right? But will she be able to retain it is the concern. So definitely the support is needed and helping them with any treatment options, if they're willing to go that route, is definitely part of something we help them with. And even if I thought, in my opinion, she may not be ready, it wouldn't stop me from doing my job and still helping her get on track, or still helping her find work if that's what she really wants to do. So I guess my opinion is just my own opinion, but it wouldn't stop me from doing my job for what I need to do.
Well, you bring up an interesting point about you might feel that way, but you still would work with her. And I think that's an interesting point of, can you do this job effectively if you, in your heart of hearts, don't feel like the person is ready for work? Can you actually put that to the side and give them all of your attention and help them to find a job like you would a person who you thought was ready? So are you able to do that?
I do it anyways, and because my opinion is mine, and I'm not going to tell them that they can't do something that they think they can do, because they're their own person and it's their life, and I want to help them to succeed in their life. Whatever I think doesn't particularly matter in this situation. I know it's case by case basis, of course, but I just think that if that's what they're coming for me to help them with, that's what they want to do. If they say they're ready, then I'm going to do everything I can to help them. And then maybe find out along the way that maybe they aren't as ready as they think they are. Not necessarily wanting them to crash and burn, if you will, because I don't want that either. I like to prevent relapsing if I can, or prevent them struggling and not being able to hold their job. So I will always have concerns, and I will just keep working with them, supporting them, and kind of being their accountability partner, I guess, if you will, amongst the many other ones they probably have, just to kind of help keep them on track the best that I can. Because at the end of the day, they're the adult, they're going to do what they're going to do regardless of what we do. And that's unfortunate part of the job, but it happens from time to time.
And you said that you didn't think she was ready, and the part that made you think she wasn't ready was the drinking part, or was it the prostitution, or was it both?
The drinking and the depression. I can understand the prostitution because she felt like that's all she could do. It doesn't mean you can't walk away from that. That's something you can walk away from. Drinking, on the other hand, is a lot harder, only because I'm a recovering alcoholic, so I know how hard it is to not do that anymore. So again, that's part of my biased opinion because of how I know I would feel. I was depressed, I drank, I wasn't always the greatest drinking person either, so I can get it from that perspective. But if she's showing up and she's making her appointments and she's doing what she's being asked to do, then by all means.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. Anybody else who feels strongly that this person is not ready to work? Or anybody out there feel the same way that Kristen does, that she's not ready, but I am going to continue to work with her anyway until she gets ready? Roseanne.
Yeah, I think it's not so much that she's not ready to work. I think she needs some services, independent living services, to work with her to see if she'll go to counseling, possibly if she needs medications for the depression, because when it says severely depressed, also try to help her find a more permanent residence. So, things like that. So if you get someone in there doing the independent living aspects of it, it might also help her to understand that she, deserves a better lifestyle than what she's been doing. And then, which in combination with looking for employment, I think she'd have a more successful outcome than if you just put her, into job development and try and find her a job without some good supports.
So Roseanne, what I hear you saying is that she needs to get services before she can start looking for a job, because that's going to make her be more successful.
Yeah, I mean, you could start her with the employment, but hopefully the person that's doing the employment services also has an IL contract, so they can be doing both at the same
Okay.
time. So you're doing like good wraparound services. Because if you go and, help her find a job, but she's still depressed, she still doesn't have a good place to live, how long is she going to stay at the job if she's coming in smelling, not getting good showers, not having her, her clothes aren't getting washed. To me, you're setting her up for failure if you don't give her better wraparound services.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that. This is a fascinating discussion, and I think this is the discussion we need to have. Anybody else have concerns about going directly? So she presents herself and says, I want a job. Anybody out there saying she's the perfect client for us to take on? We can help this person. Or are there still some of you feeling like, she's not ready?
I think that the great thing about my job is supportive services, because I want to be there when they are ready. When I just know that if they can take the time out of their busy schedule of drinking and using, right, to call me consistently, they're ready not to work immediately, like tomorrow or within 30 days, but the idea is there, and I want to keep them motivated in that idea. Like for her, I keep her motivated. I always let her know about her options. Sometimes she would call me and she goes, oh, my trick is here right now. And I said, oh, okay. And I'll talk to you in a couple of days. Okay. She goes, yes, please, Miss Deanna, please call me tomorrow or call me in a couple of days. So I call her in a couple of days. How are you feeling? Oh, I'm, I just feel that she's ready, but I was helping her get ready with the supportive services that she needed. She needed to take medications. We got her stabilized on medications. We got her stabilized in her recovery. I was able to give her resources for support systems, going to 12-step programs, which ones does she feel most comfortable with, AA, NA, CA, whatever. And so she felt more comfortable with AA. So I found lots of meetings in her AA, and I was also able to drive her, to her AA meetings and stay there with her. That's part of what we do to get them back, to get them on track. So she saw those supportive services. So she's ready for him. She's not immediately ready, but her mind is saying she is ready. And so when we got together, I made it very clear about all these concerns about, okay, what if you do get a job today? What if you do get a job today? Do you think that because of maybe your drinking, making more money, do you think that would get in the way of you continue, to be workforce ready, or would you quit? Like these are things that we discussed, together, going back and forth. So there was a lot of decision making, but most of it to get her there was the supportive services, that she needed. And so when somebody comes to me, I feel, that they're always ready. That's what I feel. I said, if they come to me, they're ready. It's just up to me and my supportive services that can tackle her to get into the I'm really ready. Like, there's I'm ready, and then there's I'm really ready. And yes, so that's that. So I think that having the IPS model and the zero exclusion, sometimes it, as I've been working in this field as an employment specialist for 15 years, it has brought, the more I work on it, the more I'm doing, I had those feelings that Kristen had, like being like I know she personally isn't ready. Not so during the time going by and me having my own personal experience, me working with several different types of people, it started seasoning me. It started seasoning me to be able to have that mindset that if they took the time out of their busy schedule of using, you know, they're ready.
Okay.
They're ready. They're ready. They're ready for me to help them, give them ideas, because a lot of the participants that I work with, you know, some of them have never worked before. You know, some of them, and that's why I think it's very important that we have a broad spectrum of employers, right? Employers that know about the community that I serve. You know? And so so I work with them until they are really ready.
Okay. All right, I hear you.
Yeah.
And somebody wrote in the chat box that they like to utilize volunteer activities in the community while they are getting ready for work. That builds self-esteem and new skills. Candace, tell me a little bit more about that, if you can come off mute. I'm curious.
Sure. Hi, everybody. No, I work with clients. I'm up in the Olympic Peninsula here in Washington, so it's an extremely rural area. I bump into substance use is a huge theme across my desk. So one thing that I like to use to kind of combat issues like the case study you've got posted there is getting them involved in volunteer activities, because there's usually a very minimal time commitment involved. And there's so much, we have so many different kinds of volunteer activities that are available here. You know, everything from the EMT service, ambulance service has positions, the firefighters, but also wildlife rehabilitation, which I love for this clientele, because a lot of my clients always say, I want to work with animals. And this gives them an opportunity to help someone else heal as well as themselves. But, you know, a lot of it is just, it's not veterinary care, but just husbandry, taking care, helping the volunteers in these little community centers keep the cages clean, you know, and then they get to watch these other animals recover. But the time commitment is very minimal. So, you know, because instability in scheduling is usually one of the biggest barriers that my clients are facing.
Right.
Especially if they're using, you know, and their recovery isn't as far along as, you know, as they'd like. But no, it gives them a chance to build their self-esteem and also to learn some new skills so that they feel that they have alternatives to their prior options in terms of career. And for a couple of them, it's led to job offers, you know, little part-time job offers, you know, if they find that they really engage with the centers. So anyway, that's just my go-to for helping, you know, because I think by the time they've committed or they've successfully been volunteers, you know, a lot of times I like to use that as a first step to go back to work, you know. It helps.
So you're running a IPS program and you're utilizing, and you're having people who you don't feel are quite ready. You're utilizing a volunteer program
as an option. Yeah, as an option. Yeah. So if a lot of times we'll get
this is Dawn.
Yeah.
Hold on. I don't go there.
This isn't necessarily going to be paid for by a mayor group. So when somebody's talking volunteer, read your mayor group contract to determine whether that's a service you can bill. I don't want to leave anybody with the impression that you can't.
Right.
Oh no, I don't bill for that. This is something I do when my clients, you know, while they're looking for work and while we're utilizing other services.
So let me bring us home. This was one of my clients. I mean, there were other things going on, but this was one of the people when I first started doing job development that I had to work with to find a job. She got a job right away, and she lost the job within a month. Then we worked on getting her a second job. And she got a second job. And in that second job, she made a decision that drinking was not gonna, like she said, I need to start thinking about this drinking thing because it really is not working for me with, with this new job. She liked that second job. She really enjoyed going to it. And she decided on her own that the drinking, that she wanted to do something about that. And she wanted to keep the job. And we also, in the process, and I think somebody else said this earlier, we started working on both housing and employment at the same time. I didn't say go get a place to live and then we'll work. She was not taking medication. And at some point when she stopped drinking, that's when she was ready to start dealing with the depression. This was all on her terms. I had stopped making predictions about whether or not people were ready to work because I was wrong so many times. There were some people who came in and I'm like, oh man, this is the ideal person. It's gonna be easy to get him a job. And it was a pain in the ass. Excuse my French. He kept sabotaging every job we got. And he was supposed to be the easy one. What we know for a fact, and listen to me, we do not know whether or not somebody is ready for work. There is nothing in this scenario that will give you the answer of whether or not this person is ready to work. In order to be the best employment specialist, you have to believe that if a person is saying to you, I want to work, that they're ready. You have to believe that. Joy, I see your hand up. Go ahead, talk to me.
So it's been a lot of years since I was a job developer. But one of the concerns is like, we don't control the job market. Employers are also our clients.
Mm-hmm.
And, like when I've made like a strong, relationship with an employer, and somebody comes in and they're there for a month, and then I got someone else, maybe hey, yeah, that was just a one-off. Can you give this other person a chance? We have to take care of the employer too. Otherwise, we're going to burn them because there are several job developers going to the same employers. And so that's kind of, where it rubs me the wrong way, like, assume they're ready, get them a job. It's not always that easy. And then if they can't keep it, they are, I have to still take care of my employer because I want other people to get jobs with this employer. So I think it's a real tough thing to say, yeah, let's go ahead because I can't burn my employers.
That is very true. But don't you think that employers have had other people who've done the same thing that didn't have issues, or that, I mean, when I go and talk to employers, they can tell me stories about people who've come and worked for a day and not come back the next day. So Don't you think employers are used to that?
Yes, to a certain extent, but also to, I always felt like, my name was kind of on it. And, if I'm bringing you someone and you're going to give this person a chance, and then like all the people I bring you are just short term, and it just becomes, more of a You know, it's like people wouldn't, you know, I feel like people wouldn't trust me with my, you know, with my people.
Yeah, so have you had that happen to you where you had
Oh,
a
yeah.
person
Oh, yeah.
go to a job and
Oh,
mess
yeah.
it up and
Yeah.
the employer said, I don't want to work with you anymore?
Basically, yes.
Hmm.
So I just think that we have to look at the in discussing this, I want to look at the big picture and what happens in the system, you know, with all the players, not just our clients. We need to, you know, we don't control the job market. Sometimes finding certain people a job, you know, it's no piece of cake, as job developers know. And so, you know, how do we find the balance between supporting our clients and supporting our employers?
That's a good question. And I will tell you, Joy, that I did job development for on and off for at least 10 years at a minimum. And I've had employers say, don't want to work with you anymore. Your person came, left it. But I've also had employers who continue to work with me. Even after somebody messed up and bombed big time.
Yeah.
And so it really is about that relationship as an employment specialist or whatever the title is that you have with the employer and not making promises you can't keep. Like, you know, when I talk to an employer, I am not promising that this person's going to be here every day and do a perfect job. I can't promise that. I can promise that I will be there if there's a problem, and I will do whatever it takes to make it right. But I can't promise that this person's not going to create any issues.
Right. I just think that that is important to keep in mind, because otherwise the perspective is, you know, this everybody can work, this client can work, you know, we still have to look, I want to look at the big picture.
Okay.
Because I think there's issues within our system that are, you know, preventing things from just, you know, like, it's just not always so happy, jolly, easy.
Oh, no, this is a tough job.
Yeah.
This is definitely a tough job. I am not saying it's easy. I'll be the last person to say that this job is easy. I've been there, done that. It's not an easy job.
Right.
I'm gonna let Deanna, because I think Deanna has something to say to you, and then we'll keep coming back to it. Go ahead, Deanna.
Okay, so with me and working with my participants, you know, I have lots of great employers that fit a whole bunch of different areas. Some of them are employers under, you know, they like what you said, Pat, you know, our participants aren't the only ones that have been there for short periods of time. But my relationship with each of the employers is really important. And the way that I do that is I keep close communication. I let the employers know, like, all I ask is for the interview. I'm not asking you to hire them. I'm asking you to interview them to see if you see what I see, right? And then at that point, the employers understand and they hire them, and they said, wow, she made a really, you know, they made a really great impression because this person suits up and shows up. And I've had participants that quit like after the first week, saying this is not for, you know, this is not for them. They call me back up and they say, hey, you know what, this and this happened, and they said, when can you shoot me your next client? You know, because they understand, because with the interviewing process and everything, they saw what I saw.
Exactly. And they're making the decision.
Yeah, they saw what I saw.
Yes.
So I'm not going to send somebody that's in there that's obliviated or drunk, you know. I'm just saying, you know, that that I really put zero exclusion on everybody. But if I know that there's some challenges that I have to meet with that participant, then I work with them. I'm sitting there and I'm working with them to get the workforce ready. And then once they're workforce ready, when I know that I'm going to send them to an employer for an interview, they're going to see what I see. right? And they're
Right.
gonna give a, and I have not, for myself, but maybe San Diego might be a different scope, you know, maybe the games are a little bit different wherever everybody is out.
Right.
But with San Diego, they want to hire all over the place.
Right.
You know, and they want to give people a chance, and they see what I see, so they end up hiring them, but because of my relationship with them, because we're as IPS model, you know, like 60 or 70% of my job is acquiring great relationships with the employer. And so once I mean, the participant is important, but we're only allowed to have 20 participants, correct? So not all 20 are going to be fitting in one place. I have employers all different avenues, and I continue to build, that relationship with all of my employers. I meet them for lunch. I do all kinds of things. Go to the hiring events. I connect them with all kinds of stuff. So they know what my community looks like.
Right. And they know they know about you, and they're making the decision. And I think, Joy, that's the important part to remember, is that you're not forcing any employer to hire somebody. They're hiring this person because they feel like this person is a good fit. Now, I am gonna be there. I am not gonna, disappear. I will be checking in like Deanna on a regular basis. That relationship is crucial to me. And I am going to be talking to the employer all the time, seeing how things are going, seeing if there are any problems. Can I do anything? And when this person left that first job, I went back to that employer and I said, it didn't work. And he asked me a few questions. He was like, well, what do you think is going on? And I said, this was like her first real job, and it wasn't what she wanted. It's not what she learned a little bit about herself in taking this job. And I apologized and I said, but I have another person if you want to, talk to them. And he said, sure, I'll talk to them. It's rare to lose an employer if you work on that relationship, you build it, you stick with them, you keep talking to them. You don't make promises that you can't keep. You say, look, I think this is a person for this job. This is what you're looking for. This is what this person has. You talk to them and see if you feel the same way. And if you feel the same way, then you can give them a chance. And you know that I'm going to be here to work with them. And if things don't work out, then, we can figure out a next step. So does that help, Joy? I mean, I hear you. That relationship with the employer is important.
I don't need the help. And I don't think, a lot of people as job developers don't need to be like reminded of this is what you do and this is how you do it. What I'm trying to say is we also have to take care of our employers.
Yes,
I'm not asking
absolutely.
People, this is what you should do. This is what you should do. I feel like it's a lecture.
No, I'm not trying to lecture. I'm sorry.
I'm saying that we need to also keep in mind our employers.
Absolutely.
If someone is a real quote unquote shaky client, it doesn't, like I have to be careful, or a job developer has to be careful about, is this client going to ruin this relationship? What's the impact that it's going to have on my relationship with the employer? That's all I'm saying, is that we need to look at the big picture. And, we're running out of time. So I'm kind of hoping maybe we could move on.
Okay. All right. I hear you, Joy.
Thank you.
All right. Well, yes, you have to look at the big picture, but at the same time, you have to look at why are you doing the job? that you're doing the job because you're trying to find jobs for people. And I would say your client is just as important as the employer. Would somebody read this next one for me? Any volunteers?
I can do it.
Okay.
It says, I hear voices and sometimes respond to them. Most times the voices are nice, but every now and then they say mean things. I self-medicate sometimes by smoking weed because I don't like taking the drugs that the doc gave me. Those pills make it impossible to have my stress relief, so I only take them when the voices get bad. I have been arrested and I think that I am a registered sex offender. I had to pee and the police arrested me because the bodega owner complained and they called it public indecency, which is a sex crime. I asked my therapist for a referral to employment, but she said that I wasn't ready. I want to work so that I can pay someone for stress relief.
Is this person ready for work? In the chat box, is this person ready? I see no, I see yes, yes. I think so. Yes, so people are struggling a little bit. Why are you struggling with this one? Is it the sex offense? Oh, they need to get their mental health under control before thinking about work.
I'd say that I think it's probably for me the sex offense, because I've worked with people in the past that have sex offenses, and not that it's impossible to get them a job. It's just most of the time a lot harder because of the stipulations of like where they can work, who they can work with, and just who is willing to work with them. So I think that limits a lot of the options, but I wouldn't say that that makes it impossible for them to get a job.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody else have feelings? Go ahead.
I think, yes, they are ready to work, but there's not enough information to actually determine if they are or not, because it says right there, I think I'm a registered sex offender. So there's stuff you can do to help them see if that's something that they actually are, and then finding jobs that don't do background checks, or jobs that are willing to hire people with criminal backgrounds. And I work with a lot of individuals who hear voices, and I don't see an issue of them going to work with that type of mental health.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else?
Yes, I've had people, I mean, I've worked with a lot of sex offenders in the past. And also when they say, so what I would do if they're hearing voices, I try and put out resources for them to get them mentally stable to be workforce ready, right? And so it was my job to find jobs that are to get them started and warmed up and that accept sex offenders, right? So I found that employer, right? And they can actually call in their own hours. So then it would be up to them whether they felt that they were ready to work. And they usually, they put them to work right away as soon as they make that phone call. It's working outdoors. And at the same time, I ask them, because they say, well, you know what, this job isn't paying enough. Absolutely, that job isn't paying enough. But what about thinking about an idea of starting your own business? How about that, right? So I had two people in that area start their own businesses, right?
Nice.
So we did some job planning because I had a resource for the job planning development, and I had a resource because they were employed that they can get a small business loan.
Yes.
Right. And so it was, and so doing that, help them, motivate them to stay working, call in for more hours because they had a plan and they had a goal. But before I did that, I had to meet them where they were at because they said they wanted these things. So I said, well, what do you feel about me preparing you to get there before you actually start a job so you can keep it? And so they were, they were open to that. They had a lot of, they had the voices. I mean, it's so weird when you bring up these stories because they're a lot like some of the stories that I've had in the past. And yes, it is difficult to find jobs for sex offenders, but not impossible. But the biggest thing is getting them mentally stable. Because working with mental illness, getting them mentally stable to start making some decisions, right?
Yes.
And so, it's a process, but I have success stories, in those areas that had those small sex offending crimes. And they're like freaking 20 years old for like peeing in public and just some small, just really small, and it affected their life in a big way. So I just feel like they are job ready, but they just need some additional supportive services to get them where they need to be. It's just all of the meeting them where they're at and just bringing the services together for them so that they can be job ready in a couple of months, maybe 3 months. But that constant communication and finding employers that accept sex offenders.
Absolutely. Sierra, I see your hand up.
Hi, yeah, Sierra with Icron. I guess I just also wanted to kind of piggyback off of everything we've said. Also, like, I think we were talking about bias a little bit at the beginning. And I think a lot of times with mental health, like, we see, oh, I hear voices, and we're like, how would we ever work if we heard voices?
Right.
But I think when I look at mental health, it's like, well, they got here today and they made the appointment to see me, and like they are functioning in their life at this capacity. Like this, like if that happened to me, since this is not my quote unquote normal, yeah, I might not be ready. But like this person, this has been something that they've been experiencing and handling and having to deal with for a really long time. And I think, a lot of times I have to check myself and being like, okay, I am the employment specialist. I'm not a mental health counselor. I'm not like the mental health specialist. And of course, like we see patterns and, like we can have an outside view, but I think it's really important to realize that every person is like an expert on themselves. Nobody knows themselves better than themselves.
Absolutely.
And so I think, am I going to try to get this person like a white collar full-time office job? Probably not. But I think like, kind of as the employment specialist, like it's our job to know what job would be a good fit. And I think it's that person's job to know if like, okay, am I ready? But it's like, yeah, so I don't know. I just wanted to put that in there and contribute, but great conversation.
I appreciate that. Let me stop and say this, because I'm hearing a lot of people really struggling with this ready to work. And, the title of this is, can anybody really work? If somebody is saying they want to work, they are ready to work. What the research has shown us is that we do not have anything out there that can tell us whether a person is ready to work. there is no indicator that tells us whether or not a person is ready to work. The only thing that we know is this: when it comes from within the person and they say, I'm ready to work, they are ready to work. And that's according to all of the research. This is why we have zero exclusion. This is why we are using this model. Because there are other, when I first started doing job development, there was no model. It was just, you have the person, we had some stuff that we wouldn't work with, and we tried to predict whether or not a person was ready for work. And half the time we were wrong. There is no way to predict if a person is ready for work. Now, the one thing that you need is for the person to say, I'm ready for work. And for this, I'm gonna give you a little thing here. That has to be coming from the person. Now, I've had people come into my program and say, I wanna work. And when we boil down to it, they are being pushed to do this from some other program. Like, they're in this other program, and in order to be in this other program, they have to be actively looking for work. So this is not coming from that person. It's coming from, they want this other program and they have to do this. Those people don't want to work. They're just telling you that because it's what they are supposed to be doing. But when that person comes to anybody and says, I want to work, they are ready to work. That's all it takes to work, is that you have to be ready. That person has to be ready to work. Now, it falls on the staff to help figure out what's the best job for that person. And working with that person to figure out what's the best job for you. But if a person gets to the point that they say, I want to work, they are ready to work. And if you don't believe this, or if you feel like the relationship with the employer is too important and you can't put anybody questionable in that job, then it's going to be hard to do this program. It's going to be hard to do IPS, because one of the main tenets, or one of the main things about doing IPS is zero exclusion. So by us making a decision whether or not a person is really ready is going against zero exclusion, right? Because zero exclusion means all they have to do is say, I want to work. And it's our job to help them find work. Somebody was trying to say something.
Yeah, it's me, it's Joy.
Okay.
The challenge that we are currently having with clients who want to work, who have mental illness diagnoses and plus, the amount of support the person needs on the job is not available within the system. So what's happening is that the CRPs are getting people jobs for like an hour a week. And, I have a client currently that, I'm really pushing back on, because CRP says, oh yeah, we have a job for this person. It's an hour a week. This person is like the Energizer Bunny. She could work 40 hours. There's not the support for that. The only support available in the system that the CRP can afford is we can support her for an hour a week because she needs one-on-one. And there's a lot of people like that. People that have come out of sheltered workshops, a lot of people on work in competitive employment, and that's fabulous. But, we are working right now with the population of folks that the level of support they need is not available.
Okay.
When I saw the topic of can anyone who wants to work, you know, it thrills me because I see this Darlene saying in Northwest Center does one-on-one with DDA. So, but we're still having problems of finding, like if this client could work 20 hours a week, there's not one-on-one support for 20 hours a week for this person. So we need to do something different in the system. I don't know, funding, I don't know what it is, hiring more job coaches. But there are people who want to work and are capable of working with the right supports, but the system doesn't have enough hours to support them.
Okay, and so Joy, let me ask you this. Are you doing the IPS model and are you the employment specialist?
I'm a DVR counselor, so I work with employment specialist, and you know, they're doing the IPS model. So yeah, I guess I'm joining along. Yeah.
So one of the key things in doing IPS is having a small caseload so that you can have the ability to work with people one-on-one as much as possible.
Yeah, and that would be great. I don't know how big the caseloads are for the employment specialist. You know, usually I think it's around 20. But my point being, the CRPs are short staffed. There's not enough staff to give people, you know, the support that they need to do a job.
Yes.
1 hour a week, you know.
It's not really a job.
Well, that's my opinion, Pat, but a lot of people would disagree. I think if that's all the client is able to do,
absolutely,
I can support that. But when it's because we have a lack of resources, that's where I'm like, oh no, the system needs to change. So I
agree with you. If there may be a gap. And if there's not enough staff, then that makes a big difference. And I hear what you're saying. That's a big difference. If there's not enough staff to support the people, because IPS we're supposed to be working with the hardest to serve. And we are not supposed to be questioning whether people are ready or not. They just have to say, I'm ready. And we have to think about the employer, but that's why the caseload size should be small. And Angela, I see your hand up and then we're gonna keep going. Go ahead, Angela.
Ask you, Pat, really quick.
Yeah.
What is a small?
It's supposed to be 15, you can have up to 15 people on your caseload, maybe 20. But if you have people with severe issues, I would even have a smaller caseload if you're having to provide that much one-on-one with people.
Yeah.
Is having a smaller caseload so you can do that. Trust me, I've worked with people with severe, I'm saying really severe mental health issues that needed me there to be the job coach while they were working and help them to figure out the best way to do the job. I've done it before. I used to be on the job with that person, working with them and trying to make sure that they understood and they had a method and they got a routine. That takes a while and it takes energy, and there's no way I could have had 20 people on my caseload like that.
Yeah, and this is what I think a lot of the job developers are up against. You know, they have so many clients, there's not enough hours to give people the support that they need. For some people, yeah, you know, you help them get the job and they're good. But there is a gap in services. And when, in my opinion, like when we're like, okay, IPS, woohoo, you know, I've been in the business for 35 years. So, you know, these new ideas come, great, we're going to do it. But we have to look at, okay, I get the theory, I get the research, but when we put our boots on the ground, you know, we have to look at the big picture and know.
No, you're absolutely right. We have to look at the big picture, but But this will fall back on, if their caseloads are too big, they're not going to be doing well with IPS, period. Because you can't do this. You can't work with the hardest to serve and have 20, 30 people on your caseload that are the hardest to serve, that all need, hourly work or hourly support. That doesn't work. And agencies are doing a disservice to the staff and the clients and the employers when they try to make the caseloads too big.
Amen.
Angela, talk to me.
What I'm struggling with, it's not really my caseload, it's trying to job coach, because I only get 30 hours with foundation community support clients, right? And with those 30 hours, it's only for 6 months. And so I have to, do job search, work on job skill development, job coach. And what happens when I need to job coach and the client needs me there in person, but I don't have the sufficient hours to job coach? That is my biggest struggle with certain clients. And I've tried looking for other resources and they don't qualify for anything else. So I'm kind of at a loss with certain clients where I can't be there for them. And I try to communicate with the employer and be like, hey, I'm trying to set up natural supports, having the client call me if there's anything happening, if they need me right away. But it's a struggle. And I wish there was more that I could do, but I can't.
There is more.
The exception to the rule. The fact that you can ask for more hours in that 6-month period if a person needs them. Is that something you're familiar with?
Yeah. So we have, but they only give you 10 hours, right? And so what happens when I have a client that I'm trying to train them for the job, but they're working 20 hours a week, or they're working 15 hours a week, and they still haven't really learned the job. So, and thinking about all the hours that I've spent for looking for the job and connecting with employers.
So
and I appreciate the hours thing, because that's not something I've heard before. It's not really supposed to go that way in my understanding. So I will follow up. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, and the other thing is, the managers who are managing the IPS programs need to think about and figure out a way to not have too many of the people on your caseload at one time that need that level of support. It becomes really, you have to really look at who's on your caseload and say to whoever the manager is, I don't have enough time because I have too many people on my caseload that need a lot of job support or a lot of job coaching. And I can only have maybe 2 people on my caseload that need that level of job support, so I can go out and do it. And that becomes a way that, whoever's managing the program has to look at it and say, okay, Pat, you have 2 people already on your caseload who are going to need a lot of support. So we're not going to put this next person that comes up, I'm going to give it to somebody else who doesn't have that on their caseload. Or we might have to hire more people to do this role so that you all can give people that needed amount of attention. That becomes the manager's job of the IPS program, is to try to make sure that, and also maybe not putting everybody on your caseload at one time, like gradually adding people to your caseload. Like, for instance, when I was both the job developer and job coach. I had the slash. So I was working with people coming directly out of the mental health hospital. I mean, that's who I had to help find jobs. Most of the people I had on my caseload had never worked before. And so I found the person a job. This person needed me there. I was there for the entire first week with that person. And she was working at a Pizza Hut. And it was hot. And I was there with her for 1 week until, and each day I was watching her progress to the point that she, wasn't asking as many questions. After a week, I was able to not be there, but I called in and I had her calling me to check in, to let me know at lunchtime how things were going. It took a week. That means everybody else on my caseload had to wait. And I was like calling and I was telling my supervisor, I'm like, look, I gotta be here because if I'm not here, she's not gonna be able to keep this job. And I wanna make sure she's stable in this job before I start reducing my time with her. And my supervisor was like, okay, let me get you somebody else to help with the rest of your caseload until you feel like she's at a better place. Those managers have to help you. And if you're doing this job and you feel like you have too much on your plate and you can't give people the support they need, talk to your managers, say to your managers, look, I'm struggling here. I have to provide more support than I'm providing, and there's only one of me. Can we bring in somebody else? Because many times you can bring in another staff person because they're going to get paid as long as you have billable work for them. But many times managers are trying to force too much on the workers to make this job doable. This job is only doable with a small caseload and really staggering your caseload. On your caseload, you want to have some people looking for work. You want to have some people working. You want to have some people who've been working for at least a couple of weeks. You want to have people at different levels so that you can manage that and do it in an effective way. But according to IPS and according to what we know from research, if a person says they want to work, they are ready to work. And most times when people say they want to work, all of these other issues, the hearing voices, the possible sex offense, I can deal with that if I can help this person get a job, because that job is going to cause this person to want to make some changes. And I'm saying this because I know it's true. I've done it. This person I worked with, I'm giving you real examples of people I've worked with. And this guy that we're talking about right here, he got a job because he wanted to pay some prostitutes money. That was his whole thing with this, stress relief. That was his way of telling me what he was doing. We got him a job, and after a while, he was like, I want a date. Like, this paying prostitutes is too much money. He started asking for more help and started saying, maybe I should talk to somebody about those voices. Maybe there's some different types of drugs, or maybe there's some other way to deal with this. I didn't even have to talk about that with him. And I got together with his case manager, his therapist. We all worked together to make sure that this person had the wraparound services and had multiple people who he could go to if something was not going well. So one of the keys is to get other people involved. Get somebody who can do talking to him about the voices. He can be doing that while he's looking for work. Get somebody else to, you could, have somebody else figure out, is he a sex offender? And what does that mean? What jobs can he do and what jobs can't he do? And then you go from there. So no, I know this is not easy work, people. You've signed up for something that is a challenge. But in order to meet that challenge, you have to have a small caseload. You have to believe in the clients. You have to be honest with the employers, and you have to work those relationships all the time because it's a challenge. This is not an easy job. So the reason we're doing this is because this is all about zero exclusion. Basically, part of IPS is we know we can't and shouldn't exclude people, whatever they come to us with. And we say this because we know. I worked at one job where we would not take people with violent criminal history, or we wouldn't work with people with sex offenses. We thought that would make our job easier. No, it didn't. I worked at the same job. We forced people to deal with their mental health first. A lot of those people who had to deal with their mental health never came back for work. They decided like that when they said they were ready, they were ready. It's like when you say you're ready to go into substance use treatment, you're ready at that point. If I say to you, oh, you're ready for substance use treatment, well, let me see if you're serious about that and have you do something else. By the time you get them into that treatment, they're not ready anymore. And they're like, keep your treatment. I'm gonna go out and do what I do. We have yet to come up with anything that lets us know whether a person is ready, other than we know when people say they're ready to work, that on some level they're ready. Now, will it be easy? No. Lots of things will get in the way. Fear is gonna get in the way. Fear of, okay, now I'm working. If I lose this job, then what? Because now I got my whole life set. I got a place to live. I got a job. There's pressure to keep a job. I've had many people sabotage their job so that they don't have to think about losing that job. I've had people who got the job, things were going well, things got too good, and they freaked out and said, uh-oh, people are expecting different things of me, and I don't think I can be that person. All of this will get in the way, and all of this has to be anticipated. Having conversations about it, trying to, every time I'm working with a client, I'm having conversations about, what happens if you're successful at this? What happens if you're not successful? I'm trying to make sure we have a plan in place in case something happens, because something will happen. You have to anticipate it's not going to go perfect. Something will happen. And you can either talk about it before it happens and be prepared, or you can talk about it after it happens. I suggest talking about it beforehand, because that way the person's in a good space to be thinking about what happens if. You don't want to wait till they're in crisis to be trying to figure out what to do. So why is zero exclusion important? In my opinion, everybody who wants to work can work. And I say that, and I've been in this field for a hell of a long time. And if somebody wanted to work, I could get them a job. Why? Any other reasons why zero exclusion is important?
I'd say because it empowers the participant more than anything. Because if we're continually saying that we're person-centered and we're, harm reduction and everything, and they're expressing their needs that they want to work, then I think more than anything, that's the most empowering thing, is that we can help them achieve what they want. And so I think the zero exclusion just allows a lot of people that probably wouldn't necessarily have a normal chance of getting a job just on their own, out in the world, to have a little bit better chance of making what they want come true.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Brianna. Yeah, it's that people, if people are thinking about work, they still are having hope. They still are wanting to be a part of this society. And it's, if we are the ones who are making the decisions, I think about it for all of us, anybody here, how would you like it if somebody else says to you, or somebody comes over to me and says, Pat, you're overweight, you have high blood pressure, and you have a mental health issue, and we don't think you should work. What would your response be if somebody told you they didn't think you were ready for work? Would you take that and say, oh, okay, you're right, I'm not ready? Or would you think, who are you to tell me what I'm ready for?
I think it also maybe motivates people more. It's obviously you don't want those critics to, make people feel like that. But I think a lot of the time, if especially our participants are hearing that type of rhetoric a lot of the time outside of our offices and working with us, then I think that's just probably motivating them more to be like, well, I can, watch me,
Yeah, and hopefully it does. And some people, it does do that. It motivates them. I had one person I'll never forget, and this is me, and I said anybody can work, but she came into my office day one. She wanted to work, and I said, well, what other goals do you have? She told me, I'm going to work a full-time job, I'm gonna buy a house, and I'm getting married, and I'm doing that all this year. And I said, that's a lot. And now her background was she was doing drugs, and she was also had a mental health issue, but she didn't know she had a mental health issue. She was using drugs. And when she got that first job, she got into treatment and stopped doing drugs. And then that's when she found out that she had a mental health issue. And that threw her for a loop. And we had to work together before she got to the point that she came to terms with that and started taking medication, and then had to fight with the doctor about the medication because the medication was making her tired, and it was hard to work when you're tired. So it's important that, and let me just say this, let me just finish out that story. She proved me wrong. In that year, she worked full-time, she bought a house, and she got married. I went to her housewarming, I went to her wedding. And I was questioning her. I was like, you are putting too much pressure on yourself. I thought I was doing the right thing, but by trying to protect her from herself. She looked at me and was like, you get out of my way. This is what my plan is. And I was I was glad that she told me to get out of her way so she could do what she needed to do, because that showed me, I don't know what's in a person's heart. I don't know what they're capable of. I have to trust them. And from that point on, I stopped trying to predict what people can do. I obviously was not good at predicting. Any other reasons why zero exclusion is important? I'll tell you one reason. That second person on that example I gave you, he talked to his therapist. His therapist didn't think he was ready for work. So the therapist was not going to refer him. It was just happenstance that I saw him and he came to me and he said, I asked my therapist to refer me to work. And she said, no, I'm not ready. I want to work. And I said, well, let's fix that. Let's bring you in and see if you qualify. Basically, the qualifications are the same as your qualifications for IPS. He qualified. He worked. He messed up on a couple of jobs, but the third job stuck. And he's gone on to, right now, he's actually running a substance abuse program in a hospital. He's running it, that whole wing of recovery. And he will tell you today, he will tell you how many times he and I bumped heads, how many times that I kept saying, you got to deal with this. And he was like, I'm not ready. I'll deal with it when I'm ready. Proof, it's possible. And the other thing is, you don't want the therapist thinking they know when people are ready to work. You don't want anybody taking away somebody's hope. Because that hope and that still, after all you've been through, you still want to try this. We can't take that away from people, and we shouldn't take that away from people. So zero exclusion is important. We know employment leads to recovery. I've had many of people that I've fought with and talked to about getting into treatment, and they said no, or they wouldn't go, or they said sure to make me feel better and never showed up. I know for a fact that many people have gotten to recovery through employment. It has done things for people that I was not able to do. I've had many people who got to work and wanted to fit in and have done things that has led to their recovery. The other thing is, how do you get to zero exclusion? Because it's not easy to get to zero exclusion. Because most times you're getting referrals, right? You get referrals to your employment program. You got to go to those mental health treatment meetings. You got to be a part of those. And you can't just sit in just for the people you work with. You have to be there for the whole meeting and say, oh, that person you just talked about that you're struggling with, why don't you talk to him about employment, see if he's willing to work. Many times the therapists aren't thinking work. You're there to be helping them to think about work. you also have to educate people on what does it mean to do IPS? What is this about? What's the expectations? Like, you know, and also, you know, talk to your partners. Like Joy, if you were my DVR person, we would be talking, and I would be asking you about the struggles and be trying to figure out how can we fix this? How can we make this work so that we can make our employers happy and our clients happy and the therapists and the DVR and everybody could be all like enjoying this time that we're watching this person find themselves and become a person again in their eyes, or become a member of the society again. How we should all be enjoying that together. And it takes all of us to do it. Another thing that I'm gonna highly encourage all of you to do is flaunt your success with all of your referring clients or referring staff. Don't expect them to just send you people because you say you can help them. Show them. Talk to them. Bring in your numbers. You got somebody who doesn't believe, show them your numbers. Say, oh, well, you know, so far, these are the number of people we've helped get jobs. And here's the hourly rate or the average hourly rate of the people that are getting jobs. That speaks louder than words. That is how we got people begging their therapists to come to employment, was because we were out there telling anybody and everybody how successful we were. That tenants or clients knew, they knew, they were like, oh, you really are getting jobs for people and that's the hourly wage? Help me get a job. I want to make that hourly wage. We also, if you have somebody, you're getting all of your referrals through a therapist, and you see some therapists are not referring anybody to you, talk to those therapists and educate them and let them know what it is that you can do, and tell them stories about other people that you've helped that have some of the similar issues that they're worried about. We also have to be prepared to find a new job for people who either don't like their current job or lose their current job. The first job is not going to always be the job. And we have to be prepared for that. And I used to tell all the clients, I'm not going to leave you just because you got a job. We will still be here for you. And we're still going to get in contact with you. I'm still going to talk to your employer. And if you don't like your job, talk to me first. Hopefully we can find you a job right away. And if you lose your job, we're still here for you and we'll help you find the next one.
Hey,
and
Pat,
yeah, go ahead.
Interrupt. We need to wrap it up.
I'm wrapping up. I'm on my last one.
Okay.
You need to be sharing those success stories with everyone. That is how you do this. And I'm done. Thank you very much for attending. And I'm glad that people talked. It was great hearing your comments because you're all on the right track. Thank you and have a great day.